to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. Do you wonder how your faith fits together with your profession? Well, join us as we explore how to live well at the intersection of two roads crossing.
Hello and welcome to Two Roads Crossing. I'm your host, Curtis Gibbs, CVM Region Rep for the West. And as we just explore the intersection of faith and veterinary medicine. And what's lovely today is I'm here with one of the constituents from the West. So this isn't only a podcast host, this is somebody I get to work with regularly here in the West. This is Dr. Annabelle Zastrow. Annabelle, welcome.
Thanks, Curtis. Glad to be here.
We're so glad to have you. Annabelle, tell those listening a little bit about, your history in vet med. I know you recently maybe changed in some of what you're doing, and we're going to, kind of especially touch on that. But what have you done for the majority of your career?
Yeah, so I graduated from University of Minnesota College of Vet Med in 2000 and moved out to Seattle area to Everett, Washington. And I was at that job that I took out of school for 21 years. It was a small animal practice. It was 24-hour practice. Worked emergency, but not at night. It was a very, very busy practice and loved it. And then at about year 18, 19, they sold to corporate practice and things changed a lot. And then with COVID, things really changed. And just protocols and things made it so that I really wasn't able to do my work the way I like to do my work, which is putting my patient first and my client first. And there's so many protocols we needed to follow. It just didn't meet what I wanted to continue to do and how I wanted to continue to work and serve. And so I started working for a friend who was a relief vet. And he did relief actually at that practice, kind of poached me. And we did work together for about a year and a half. And then about May of 2023, that's when we parted ways and I started my own business. So now I do relief work on my own. And I love it. Yeah.
Well, some of the working as a relief veterinarian, and there's certainly meat on the bone to talk to you about being a relief vet, because others would certainly be interested in that. But some of it has led us to the topic that we're going to mainly discuss today, that we hear all over the place, but is somewhat, I think, needs some defining, and that is mentorship. And mentorship is specifically on your heart to a degree. Tell us why mentorship is something that is just kind of been part of your recent, maybe beforehand it was part of your journey as well, but why is that recently something that's really on your heart?
It actually has been part of my journey for a really long time, and just kind of giving back to what's been so freely given to me as far as where I came from before I became a veterinarian. And we don't need to go into that now, but so much has been given to me. And so I've always wanted to give back, and in some other places in my life, and being able to be of service in such a way that it helps me stay on track. And when I was, a new vet even, I loved being, we didn't have it really as mentorship, but if a student from high school wanted to shadow, they would always ask me, they're like, "Oh, Dr. Zastrow, do you want to shadow? There's so-and-so's on the phone, with such and such high school." I'm like, "Yeah, bring them on." I also, and I loved showing what I did, because I was so grateful that God blessed me with the opportunity to go to vet school. I just, to this day, I still pinch myself that I'm a veterinarian. It's amazing. And so if you'd known where I came from before, it's a miracle that I was able to do what I love to do. And God really brought me out of the pit to bring me to the place where he wanted me. And as a result, I want to show others how great this profession is. So yeah, loved having job shadows. And I also, like at our schools, they'd have these fundraisers at the schools my kids went to. And I always put in as an auction item, they have these silent auctions, and as an auction item, a day with a vet. And like one year they're just like, "Can you do two?" Because they were just so much. I'm like, "Stop the cost. You'll make more money." People paid ridiculous amounts of money to have their kid come and spend the day. And I loved it. And I loved it.
Third career idea. You can just do that. Just sell shadowing experience. Not sell, but yeah.
Totally. Raise money for kids' schools. Exactly.
There you go.
I could. They ask us every year if we go to the auction. But as time went on, the more let's just say the more no, those were fun, for kids. They're like 8 years old, not 8 years old. I didn't take them that young, but they just thought it was so fun and they just wanted to see the surgery and pet the kitties. But as I noticed, if we did a job shadow, say for a senior in high school, was very different. But then if I was there for a student at Wazoo or whatever that was coming home to see if they really wanted to go to vet school, it really changes because they're more serious. They ask more questions that are more appropriate. And that's where I really found what I love. It's not that I don't love sharing vet med with, anybody, but to be there for someone who's really interested, to really, because I'm caring for them. I feel like I'm really guiding them into, do this, make this decision, go this path or don't.
Mm.
So then it came about once now I'm on my own. And once I started working, especially at this one practice, I say on my own, like as a relief vet, there was this particular one doctor who he was new and just so unsure of himself and such low self-confidence. And I just wanted to take him under my wing. He was like my little brother or something, and I just wanted to, like, I'm sure you've heard of the EDGE. I think it's a Boy Scout thing. Maybe not. Maybe it's a business thing where EDGE means educate, demonstrate, guide, and encourage.
Mm.
And so, he had the education, he'd seen it demonstrated. He'd been guided, but like he needed more of that, but especially the encourage part.
Mm.
And so I just found so much personal reward, but it wasn't even about personal. It was just like the personal reward is when I know that I'm walking what God wants me to do. That feeling where you're like, it feels like you're in the flow because you're doing it right because it's what God wants you to do. That is where I've been. That's what it is.
Mm.
Why I want to be a mentor, why I want to. So how that would work, it's a little up in the air because
Sure.
I mentioned before, maybe that's just personal. And as a relief vet, just be able to make that be part of my self-marketing, and I love to mentor. But if they don't know me, like, I don't know, we don't know you. We want you teaching our new vets, or just being there. And I found that just being there in that capacity and offering has been helpful. Just kind of like when you go on a mission trip and, like, here's how you're going to treat your cattle. You go and you build trust. And, oh, by the way, you should believe in Jesus. No, you build the trust by helping them, showing them, talking about Jesus. And eventually so that's kind of where I think it should go, is just a trust building first. If it's on your heart to be a mentor, trust building first, and then putting, like I said, in that mindset of saying, hey, if you're interested, totally tell me if I'm, what's the verbiage? What do I say? Tell me if I'm stepping on any toes. I don't want to step on any toes, or something like, if you want my 2 cents, just ask, or if you don't, just tell me to shut up, to kind of not self-deprecating, but to just say, I'm just saying this because I want to share my knowledge.
Yeah.
Just want to share with you. Yeah.
Would,
And then no one's ever said, no, I don't want your opinion,
yeah, but if you stepped in and you were like, I need to show you how to do this, there would be maybe a less receptive response than, giving them a lot easier on-ramp to accept your help and your mentorship, and one of the things we're seeing these days, it just wide range vet med, especially those hiring and those looking to be hired. This word mentorship is right in the middle of it, but I don't know that there's a clear definition for anybody on what they're offering, if they are the practice or the veterinarian, et cetera, on what they're offering as far as mentorship. And I'm not sure that all the new vets, the students coming out, I think many of them, which is a credit to them, that they are humble enough, if you will, to say, yes, I kind of want mentorship. We're seeing them looking for that, at least those students that we're working with, increasing numbers of them looking for that in their first jobs, even their second jobs. But I still wonder if it's defined on, they know that they want that, but I don't know that they specifically know that what they want. Do you see what I mean? So what are
Yep.
you seeing are some of the key practicality, like what are some of the key things in a good mentorship opportunity?
Yeah, great question. And that's a really great way to phrase it. So coming out of vet school, a lot of students are super prompt. They have a lot of information, but there's just so much. There's sort of this learning curve. There's this boundary you got to cross over into. I am now the veterinarian. I am now in charge. I now have to have all the answers. At least that's what's in their head. That was in my head, and I was really confident coming out of vet school. In fact, I maybe a little overconfident. I jumped into some things I might not have maybe been a good idea to do, but surgery wise. But and I did not have a mentor. And then on the other side, so sorry, so let me step back. So as a student, you might feel confident, but it's really nice to have someone that you know is there that you go to. So in a way, I kind of did have a mentor, and it was just my boss, but it wasn't a relationship established of that she's my mentor. And then on the other side, same thing. I mean, you're an owner, a business owner, and you're a veterinarian, you want to hire a vet, you assume they know what they're doing. And so you want, yeah, sure, you're there to answer questions, and there's plenty of nice people that just absolutely answer questions. And if they're advertising mentorship, a lot of time that means that they're going to sit down and do more rounds together. Or they're going to sit down and do more, discussing, how are you? And that's really important too. I think the thing that's missing though is the relationship that's really relaxed, a relaxed relationship where the new vet doesn't have to feel like they have to look just right. And the mentor the owner of the business doesn't have to make sure they keep the person in line. It's more of a fluid relationship of oh, hey, what you got there? Yeah. And let me know if you need any help with that. Just really encouraging, I guess, is what like I said before about, edge, because they've had their education, but it's more about being encouraging, hey, have you thought about that? And now that I think back, that's what Dr. Zakos used to do for me. She never said, well, you haven't thought about such and such. She would say something like, well, have you thought about this drug? And just
They're
in such a
almost the
way of
same thing, but it's a
so
little turn of the phrase, a little different
right.
posture. Yeah.
It's an encouraging kind of a way to say
Yeah.
things. But I also ask, as a relief vet, I want to make sure I'm not stepping on any toes, because I'm not a hire there. And so to say things, they know that I have so many years of experience. They know that I've worked at an emergency hospital. They know that I know what I'm doing veterinary medicine wise, but they're starting to see the value of my, my interpretation of blood work or some suggestions that I have for further diagnostics. And so I'm able now, having built that trust, to say, do you want, do you want my opinion? Or do you want to, I don't want to step on your toes, but I'd love to give you some input. And they never say no. So that relationship needs to be really a trust relationship. It can't be something like, oh, we're mentors. Call us if you need us, or have a phone number.
Mentor hotline. Not a terrible idea to think about. Yeah.
Right.
No, because there's more of a longer work relationship and frankly, physical
I had an idea.
hands-on. Yeah.
This is one of the ideas I had when I was talking with my husband the other night. How oh my gosh, this was it. It was where, so how you go as a regional rep to the schools and you do a lot of stuff for the students and it's great. And I had this idea that one of the meetings could be have veterinarians tag along who want to be mentors that come along and say, this is who we are. I'm Dr. Zastrow, and I practice around the Puget Sound, and I am so available for if you have any questions or help. So that's one way you can go. So at least they have a face and a name to know that's a person who is willing to help, right? With everything from what do I do about, negotiating my salary? What do I do? All that stuff, not just what do I do about this case and the glucose is 20, but the whatever, so to medical and even relationships with each other, as far as it's really hard. How to relate to the staff because you need them, but at the same time, you need to tell them to do stuff, but you need to lift them up, but you need to make sure that they're doing the stuff for you. It's a whole new ball game when you're out in practice. So anyway, to have somebody go into those meetings or, have an ongoing relationship with the regional reps.
Sure. And that's, I think CVM can certainly try to maybe build, as one thing we've batted around is how can we build a better platform of connecting our vast, community, people like you, people like in the schools, bridging them together, real life real impacts, which you've spoken at a lot and have connected with people a lot at, kind of can help do that. But there's got to be a more, robust way. Let me pause here and just say that I know if anybody's like me, and they probably are, you start hearing mentorship, and maybe you're the student, or maybe you're the hiring, veterinarian or whatever, and you already are like, yeah, but here's the reasons why this doesn't work and that doesn't work. Because I get it, I can totally get it. We're going to cross some of those bridges, but just to keep it on the positive aspect, one, or on the defining aspect for one more question at least. Are you seeing the need of mentorship to be what I'm hearing you say? It doesn't seem like a lot of it is the physical skills, even though our students wish they had more hands-on practice while they're at, some of them graduate having like done one spay, it's like they wish they had been able to practice that more. But are you seeing just a big picture, the needs of mentorship? It almost sounds like what you're seeing is more of the mental side, building up confidence, building up that they got this. Are you seeing that as maybe the largest part of mentorship over just the learning how to physically do this surgery or deal with this particular case?
Both is the answer.
Both. Got it.
Very, very much both. And I'm only thinking about my own experience as a newer vet, because it wasn't just coming right out of school. It was for the first, really, you're a new vet for like 3 to 5 years. That it takes a long time to really feel established as a vet. So early on, I'll just tell a little story. I was like all gung ho and I was confident. And I'm like, dog comes in on emergency, big belly. It's a German Shepherd. Oh, this has got to be a GDV, of course. Take an x-ray. Well, the stomach isn't a double bubble. Well, wait a minute. There's what? I don't understand. Why is this big outline? I had no idea what I was going into. I'm like, well, the dog obviously needs to be decompressed. I need to do surgery. Like, this is weird. So we'll go into surgery and I make this incision from xiphoid to pubis because it was like this giant ball. And I'm not exaggerating. It was huge. It was like an oversized basketball. And it comes out and it was this very thin at that point because it was a uterus filled with gas and liquid. It was a pyometra, but I had no idea what to do with this ball. So we had a doctor who had shut his practice, and then he just came to work with us on Saturdays because he wanted to still, keep his foot in the game and loved, he just loved it. But he was pretty old. He'd been around for a long time, but he called me kid, and I called him Was, Dr. Wasserman, and I just yelled. I was like, Was, come here. What do I do with this?
Sure.
And he was so funny. He's like, hey, kid, what you got there? Like, so relaxed, so calm, so kind, and just like, what do you mean you don't know what you're doing? And nothing like that. It was just like, all right, what you got? Whoa, that's quite the pow, and just held it for me while I did the surgery. And then on this side, and then I held it while he did the spay part on the other side. And, we spayed this dog. And I always think about that, about how I had the surgical skill of like, my husband. I mean, it was like,
sure.
You know what I mean? I mean, for a little bit of what I watched in vet school and what you can learn in a book, you learn a lot in a book, but that confidence was really upped that day, and to just be like, hey, it's all good. You just kind of, let's give each other some help. And then the vice versa was where I can put in where I was overconfident and really wished I had a mentor to say, before you go into that surgery, have you considered such and such? And it was where I was probably like two weeks I was literally 2 or 3 weeks into my job. And dog comes in, it had eaten a bunch of string or something. It had foreign body. And I took some x-rays. I'm like, yeah, we need to go to surgery, and did a enterotomy. And then I found that there's more string, and then there's more string, and there's some in the stomach. And I did all these incisions, and it was great. But I also went into the colon, and I would never do that today, because the next day I was telling my boss about what I did, and the dog did great. I was really great about, closing everything just right. You went into the colon? He said. I'm like, yeah, it's great, because I read about how you go into the colon, you need to do the suturing just right. And he's like, yeah, once stuff's in the colon, it'll come out. I probably wouldn't go into the colon again. And that was it. He was super chill about it, but I was like, oh, and from then on, I'm always like, thank God that turned out great. It turned out just fine, but it'd been nice if I'd heard that ahead of time, but I was working alone. So those kinds of things are the surgical, the intense, and, the, again, medical stuff too. I'm going into kind of longer answers with stories, but
No, That's
The
good
medicine
example.
stuff, I love a puzzle. And that's what medicine is, and
Yeah,
and sometimes you think it fits. Like you put a puzzle together and you think
sure.
that fits. I'm gonna make it fit. And it's like it really doesn't fit. And you can go back and fix it and do something else later. But that sometimes is, but some people don't like puzzles. They can be a good veterinarian, but they don't like, it gets overwhelming to put all those things together. And that's why we have all these algorithms now, which we didn't have when I was first out. People apparently love algorithms. I don't. I think it's cheating, but it really does work well. You don't miss stuff. Um, but then you mentioned the mental and the emotional
Yeah.
part. Um, Back when I was in school, we didn't have, the word self-care hadn't even been coined yet, I don't think,
Hmm.
the word safe space, the word, safe space and, personal care and time off. What time off? You know what I mean? Family balance, life balance, like these are all words that we coined in the last 10 years. So I don't even know if we talked about it in vet school at all.
Hmm.
So I came out like in between the old school vets, which like buck up and do it, and the newer, well, because everybody's getting so burned out and angry,
Yeah.
and so having that encouragement is what I want to give. Giving people the advice is one thing. It's not advice. It's more, you got this. You know what you're doing, you know, and as a result of doing that, they feel really, from the people that I have mentored, they feel confident enough to ask, confident in knowing they're not going to be put down, that it's safe to ask for help, that
Yeah.
they're not going to be seen as being dumb or, incompetent, that it's totally, I hate to say it, a safe space, but it really is it's safe to be able to go, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help?
Yeah.
Without having to get to the point of being panicked before they say that.
Yeah.
Because that's where I was at. I had to be completely panicked, dropping a pedicle, blood filling up with abdomen filling up with blood before I'm like, I need help. Somebody help me and step in and
Yeah.
help me
It's
with
a
the surgery.
9 out of 10 by the time you ask for help. Yeah. I'm thinking about too, like, and herein lies some of the challenges. Like the mentor I have now, non-vet side, like get to pick his, brain about ministry and organizational stuff or whatever. But I got to pick this person. I get to meet monthly with this person. I was able to, and this person doesn't have like a employment thing over me, anymore or whatever. And so I can see immediately back to where some people's mind probably raced in minute 7 of our interview is like, oh, that sounds great. But a big but in this situation is, you know, a lot of the people seeking mentorship are probably getting that from their employer. So that's a little awkward to say, I'm not confident in the skill set. And I have just as much then heart for the employer who, has probably been working at 140%. So they need the help. There's more work than there is people to do the work. And so it's like they need another productive member of their staff. So stopping to take the time to mentor, if it's even there, might be the challenge on that aspect. I mean, are you seeing that as maybe one of the big disconnects and why mentorship still is not quite yet a fully running, humming machine?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We never have time. There's always too many clients to call and too many, one more case and there's more blood work to report. And so one thing I have seen is the owner taking a day literally to be there for the new vet,
Mm.
or maybe not a whole day, but especially with surgery, they'll pick which doctor that has a lot of experience be with the new vet and be available for the new vet during that surgery. Um, I know that happened once where I was actually called to be there for, because the owner had to go, like, could you be here for Dr. So-and-so, in case he has problems during his dental? I'm like, absolutely. And if anything, for some weird reason, I was like the queen of dentals. They were like, oh, let Dr. Zastrow do that one, like the really bad ones, like multiple, like 3-root extractions with broken things and an 8.5-year-old dog with heart failure. That was like, oh, give it to Dr. Zastrow. But I really, really, um, I wanted to be there. I wanted to be there. I wanted to be right over them, and saying like, hey, can I show you? Or do you want some help doing it? 'Cause like I would watch him cut where the flap was. And I'm like, just next time you want to do it right over here instead. Did you just be there for that? You can if you're the owner, especially because you're in so high demand as the owner. Uh, Not just from your clients and patients, you're in high demand from the practice manager who needs you in the other room, and the staff, and so much going on. So to have I mean, I think it could be just a thing that's marketed as part of a veterinarian's resume. Um, you know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
it's something that you can market as a resume. I mean, outside of CVM, but in a way to just say, like, I really want, like they say, what's your strengths and skills? What are your skills like outside? Just mentorship can be a skill that you list on
Yeah.
your resume.
And like I said, most of our students are looking for that. So just to that's one great practice you just listed there is for people who own the practice, or even if they're just in charge of it or what have you, maybe they've sold it but they're still working there, to give that mentorship, just taking that a day here, a day there, and setting aside the time. I mean, every yes to something is a no to something else, and that's so true with time.
You
And
know what?
but
I
mentorship takes time and it takes trust, in my opinion. I think those are the two of the keys to mentorship.
For 21 years, I worked on a compensation basis. I negotiated over there. Well, the very first year out, I took a salary, pretty much entry level salary, a little higher than average because of the location we're working in. Our cost of living is higher. But for the most part, it was the rest of the time I negotiated a percentage pay. And I negotiated well. I tried to negotiate higher than the average. And they, after a year of seeing my production, they were like, yeah, okay.
Hmm.
So once you're on production, it does, and I've never been like money hungry. I've never been, but it does something to you to where it's like time is money. There's that little piece in the back of my head anyway, that time is money. And so since you're an owner, of course, time is money. I mean, it doesn't matter how much you pay yourself, the more people you can get in as a business owner, it just is there. If you're service oriented and your heart is really just for caring about the animals, that's like 85% of, maybe, I don't know what the percentage is, but there's always that little piece of, we need to get things moving. The business needs to thrive. Once I became a relief vet, I'm hourly or shift, whatever they want to do.
Sure, sure.
And so if the owner is paying a relief vet or their regular vet to be there for the day, they're just on a salary, there's no percentage, it's not about production at all, then they're paying them also to be a mentor, and there could be some more incentive there, as opposed to like, well, I can't mentor, I don't have time for that because I've got to, get all this, I've got to get production up. And especially with corporate. In corporate, there's so much emphasis on production. I mean, to the point of how blood work are you doing versus how many x-rays you're doing? They're just like, it's, anyway, there's a lot of things. Things have changed, I think, but
Sure.
if you're on salary and you're comfortable with that, and just say, I'm comfortable with the salary, and then you really used, your time there is to be used however is to be used. And you can, if the owner is paying this person to do, if the owner of the clinic is paying the associate veterinarian to see clients, they're also paying them in a way to be a mentor. That might be, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, yeah.
That if you're working on compensation, it might be less of an incentive to do mentoring than if you work on salary.
And many of our, you know, listeners to this podcast would be also those that try to follow Jesus, most of them. And so you kind of look like, okay, well, now here I am in this position, whether I'm a tech or even a practice manager or veterinarian, whatever, as a believer, there's some crossover between mentorship and discipleship. So you want to help somebody move a step further down the road. And at the same time, for students, even if you know the newer techniques that the person you're working under doesn't know yet, at the same time, there has to be enough humility to seek out being discipled and being moved down the road. So, I think there's no one size fits all, but it does seem like maybe there's some steps that could be taken that honestly are akin to discipleship and bringing people further down the road that would be akin to mentorship.
That is so great. Honestly, I forgot that I mean, not forgot, but I wasn't even thinking along those lines. But here's the reason, because I go back to when I was new vet, I was also not a Christian.
Mhm.
I didn't become a Christian until I was a couple years out. And then I didn't become a a real disciple of Christ for many years, just learning who Jesus didn't even grow up in the church. So just learning about Jesus and doing Bible studies and learning about the Bible and what it says and who God is and what his story and love story for his people it took years. And so now it's such an amazing way to serve. And I always think of my mission field as my work, right? I get to go in the sense of exactly what you're talking about being a disciple of Christ and in my action. And so I think of all the times, this is totally outside of mentorship, but in a way I kind of mentored on an emotional level a lot of my technicians that I worked with really closely in my old job, in just asking them, or just even saying to them, you know what, I'll be praying for you. Because you're in surgery and you chit chat about what's going on in their lives, right? Or whatever. And I would be able to say, I'll pray for your sister. If a technician told me about her sister got diagnosed with cancer or something. And I remember that. I remember one other technician, totally not Christian at all, and came up to ask me, and she said, Dr. Zastrow, I know you pray and stuff. I was wondering, could you pray for my sister? I just remember that one. That was just knowing that the Lord is there, but I don't have a relationship with him. But, anyway, that kind of thing is just really a blessing. So as a mentor to veterinary students that are already Christian, because I'm assuming you're going to do real life full impact, you do you're as a rep, you go into the schools, the people that are coming are probably Christians, right? The students that are coming?
Yeah, majority of them, yeah, for sure.
The majority of them, right. So the difference is having a mentorship through CVM versus just being a mentor out in your practice, and how we can help make that be. I wonder if we could do this. I was going to say the difference is that you're going to mostly have Christian students come, or Christian veterinarians now, right? They're going to be new, so you can pray with them. You can be like, let's pray. Let's invite God into this. And that would be great, right? But as far as discipleship goes, at the CVM level, that could be a role where we have, or like a class at short course, or the professional track at Real Life Full Impact, or even at the national CVM thing, because that's a mission field, right? Yeah. We're being disciples of Christ. And to say, this is what it looks like. This is what it would look like. Say, if you're mentoring and they're having difficulty, just be like, depending on whether or not they're Christian or not, but if they are, just be really gentle about it and say, like, hang on, I just want to bring God into this. Okay. And then proceed. And if they are Christian or thinking about it, you can be more overt about it and say, let's ask Jesus into this conversation and see where he leads us, and breathe in the Holy Spirit, and, and really talk Christianese, if you will, with them, because it's amazing how often I pray in the bathroom.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I'd say, we think of mentorship as bringing one skill set along, or teaching them how to be a veterinarian or veterinary technician, or work in this field. And there is some absolute truth to that. And at the same time, there's kind of a hand behind it moving them along, or sharing our light, shining our light, whether it's overt, if we know they're a believer, or even if it's like, yeah, like you said, you just bring God into this, okay, or they just know you're a Christian and they can tell your heart for them is more than just making them a productive employee, and building them up. You're building them up for a reason. They're sons and daughters of God, whether they realize it yet or not. And so, Annabelle, there's more meat on this bone to talk about mentorship. I encourage people to email us at podcast@cvm.org to see, because I think CVM might continue to step into this realm and see how we can bring this together. This might just be the beginning. But let's keep this conversation going. And again, we thank you for just bringing faith and veterinary medicine together, as we learn how to live well at the intersection of two roads crossing.
Thank you for listening to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. If you were blessed by this content, like and subscribe so that you are alerted when new content is released. If you would like more information about CVM, or if you have questions, comments, or topical suggestions, you can find us online at www.cvm.org. Or you can contact us by emailing podcast@cvm.org. God has a plan for the nations, and that plan includes you. We pray that CVM has encouraged you to live out your calling with confidence and competence. So, Until next time, may the voice of the shepherd ring loud and clear as you follow him in faith to the intersection of two roads crossing.